Devlin, Untamed.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
The Platform.
iOS, it's only sport. That's the name of the show. That's the name of this podcast. Martin, Devlin, Lachlan War. We do a sports show on the platform, 1 till 4, every weekday. And this is some of the highlights of it. Talking about the All Blacks being announced. Well, that's a different side, isn't it? They played Australia last weekend. Football World Cup. Couple of stunners last night. Italy and Brazil knocked out by Jamaica and South Africa. You probably won't hear that at any men's World Cup in the next 50 to 100 years. Netball. And the Silver Ferns drawing with South Africa. What does that mean for our World Championship chances? Plus the Wah-Wahs. The Wah-Wahs tomorrow night against the Titans. Big game. Let's waste no time. We begin the program, as always, tablets in hand. I say gather my flock. Yeah, I've had a lot of fun watching this Women's World Cup. Let's talk about it and go to the mountaintop.
We live in an amazing, amazing world, and it's wasted on the crappiest generation of just spoiled idiots.
An honest appraisal of what I've seen thus far in the FIFA Women's World Cup. Am I allowed to be honest about it? Can I tell the truth about what I have seen? I have enjoyed it. I got to say that. I really have. Like all World Cups, it's a bit of a slow build. You meander through the group stage, and then you get to this stage where all the knockout games are finally decided. And now it gets real. Some of the football has been average. Some of the skill level, not great. Some of the technical ability, less than what you'd probably expect or hope for. And the goalkeeping quite often is awful. But overall, I think the standard is pretty damn good. The better sides, the better players play good football. You can't deny that. It is an excellent tournament because it's just such good fun. It is great viewing. It's going to get better and better now that we're into the round of 16 because this is always the nuts. The winner-take-all aspect of sport is always the best time to watch. Superb time to sit and watch. The crowds, especially here in New Zealand, in Australia, I'm just looking at it, full stadiums, but the crowds here in New Zealand, terrific. Great slice in New Zealand and visitors doing what you should do at a football stadium. You get loose, yell and scream, have fun. You can't deny the numbers. People don't go along to something that they don't want to. People don't go along just because they feel like they have to. People don't go along just because, the ticket prices are cheap. They've got to still want to go. You've got to get out of the house, get in the car, go to the stadium, go through all of that. People vote with their feet, and the attendances are undeniable. Selling out Eden Park for a game of women's football not involving New Zealand. That sentence alone speaks volumes. Last night, 2 of the best games and results from any Football World Cup I've watched. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that. Jamaica holding Brazil to a goalless draw and dumping the 5th-ranked side out of the Cup. South Africa pegged back twice before scoring again in added time to KO the Italians. South Africa and Jamaica got through at the expense of Italy and Brazil. Say that out loud at any men's World Cup. You'll never hear that said. And to me, and that in an amazing night's entertainment is exactly what is so good about this tournament.
Devlin.
What do you want? We want information. Information. You won't get it.
The Platform.
Okay, well,
Headlines.
I'll go nice and quick then. Mm-hmm. All Blacks team named to play the Wallabies this weekend.
Run it by us. Give us a hold on.
2:35.
2:35.
Really strange. This in Dunedin, of course, on Saturday night. This is 1 through 15. Tamaiti Williams, Samasori Tokiaho, Nipololala, Brodie Retallick, Sam Whitelock, Summer Penifino, who's making his test debut, Sam Cane, captain Adi Savia. Sam Cane's back, that's very good. Finlay Christie, Damien McKenzie, Lester Whanganuku, Anton Leonard-Brown, Braden Neal, Sean Stevenson making his test debut, Will Jordan. Off the bench, notable Fletcher Newell coming back from injury. We also have Dallas McLeod on there. Richie Mwanga will be the first five for cover off the bench. Aaron Smith in there as well. Dane Coles, Tupivai, Luke Jacobson, Ofatunga Fasi. Those are the names on the bench. So very much a rotated All Black squad. The Wallabies, meanwhile, have named a new captain, the 86th ever captain, which is Tate McDermott, who's starting at halfback because, of course, Alan Alatoa not playing because of a ruptured Achilles. The Wallabies, apart from that, they've maintained Carter Gordon at 10. It's a pretty similar team to last week. Front row's been changed around a bit, as has the back row. Netball, Silver Ferns this morning, well, they were well in control against South Africa until they weren't. 5 minutes ago, they had a 5-goal lead. They led after the first quarter. They led at half-time. but South Africa came storming back, won the, they didn't win the match, they drew the match, thanks in large part to a turnover conceded by the Silver Ferns, 20 seconds to play, gave the ball away, South Africa hitting the winning goal seconds before full-time, 48-all draw. It means the Silver Ferns, they play Jamaica next. This is tomorrow morning. No, it's later tonight, New Zealand time. If we win that, we're through. If we lose, we can still get through, but we have to rely on not a big loss and South Africa not getting that bigger win against Uganda. So we're pretty safe.
We've got to beat Jamaica to avoid Aussie in the semis, isn't that how
exactly, because we'll probably play, unless Australia lose to England. They play England tonight as well, so that remains to be seen. Not a huge amount not a huge amount going on, how dare I say that. FIFA Women's World Cup, of course, some cracking games last night. I watched the South Africa-Italy game. It was brilliant. It's one of the best games of football I've watched in recent years. I'm not even kidding when I say that. South Africa winning 3-2. They scored their winning goal in stoppage time, that third goal. First ever win at a Women's World Cup, first ever time they've advanced to the knockout phase, and it also means Italy miss out on a spot in the round of 16. Sweden topped their group. They beat Argentina 2-0. Following that, France beating Panama 6-3. Jamaica and Brazil drawing 0-0, which meant that Jamaica goes through, Brazil knocked out. Brazil missing out on the knockout phase of the FIFA World Cup. You never thought you'd hear it. So that's what happened last night. Morocco, Colombia, and South Korea, Germany. Those two games are on tonight at 10 o'clock. That'll finalise the bracket essentially for the round of 16 and who will play in that first round of the knockout phase. Some football news over in Europe. Gabriel Jesus, Arsenal forward, set to miss the start of the Premier League season. He has a knee injury. As well as that, Man City, this is a move that's been mooted for a few weeks, but it's been confirmed. Man City signing RB Leipzig defender Josko Gvardiol, one of the best young centre-backs in world football. So Man City getting another brilliant player on their books, which is a bit of a shame, but whatever. I guess it's what happens with Man City these days. And for the time being, Martin, that is what is making you.
Devlin.
Oh my goodness me!
The platform.
Ian Foster, All Black coach, a raft of changes, just three names that started against Australia last week in the first 15, the run-on side for Dunedin. He joins us. Is this a bit of a luxury lineup for you, given the fact that we've got the Bledisloe locked up, we've played so well in 3 games, you were able to do this and make so many changes?
Look, it's certainly nice the way we've started. We wouldn't say it's a surprise. We've really targeted we need to get our performance at a level going into that round 1 in the World Cup, which is France, obviously. So there's no doubt we've worked hard behind the scenes in many areas of our game. And I think that, by getting the first 3 games under our belt and winning a couple of trophies, it's given us a small opportunity, I guess, to look at some of our depth options. But, the only reason we've done that is that those players have earned it through how they've gone about their work. So, we've been drip feeding a few of the changes through the last 3 weeks, but, to give the likes of a Samapeni and a Stevenson a start and to give Dallas reward off the bench is purely based on how they've earned it the last 4 weeks.
Those guys off the bench like Dallas McLeod, will they get some run-on time other than, say, the minute that Perifetta got last year?
We just have to wait and see. It's when you have your bench, you're reacting to what's happening in the game in front of you. So it's hard to make a definite decision. You've got a pretty clear idea with your front rowers nowadays, but particularly with your backs and your loose forwards, often you're reacting to what's happening in front of you. So, but I think if you look at the last 3 weeks, we've been able to get people on with enough time to really get involved in it, and that's always our intention.
This team is going to be called a B team by everyone, isn't it, apart from you? And why isn't it a B team? Why do you have so much confidence in these players? Do you believe they could start any game for the All Blacks?
Oh, absolutely. I'd be disappointed if that was a category, because you look at through that pack, and for example, and we've got a couple of pretty good locks playing together, and
not bad.
We've got Artie and Sam. We've got our skip back. We've got Sonny, who's been outstanding as a hooker. We've got Nepo, who's started a whole lot of test matches, and really, so you've got Tamaiti and Samapeni that I guess are the newer boys. So it's a very, very experienced pack. I think the backs we've got Anthony Brown coming back from sort of a long injury and suspension, and he played some time last week. Braden's been involved with the bench in 2 big tests this year already, and Will Jordan's not too bad, is he?
Not
So
bad.
I don't think the B category works at all. I think we need to get to the World Cup with 33 players at the starting line all set to go and firing, and you have to show a little bit of courage sometimes selection-wise, and just certainly the game to do it.
Have you and the selectors got your 33 penned in, not penciled in, for the announcement on Sunday?
Marty, I get asked that question a lot.
Yes.
I'm sleeping soundly, let's put it that way. And look, we've got a pretty clear plan. I think quite often you have a plan and then you adapt it as you go along, and that's kind of what we've been doing. And so I think our 33 are reasonably clear to us, but that doesn't mean that can't change on a test performance, because that's how much value we put on test performances. So, the key thing is not whether they're in pen or penciled in. It's that I guess we're all open-minded going into this week, because this is a test that means a lot to us as well.
John Hart once famously said that we're a nation of 4 million selectors. That was when the population was roundabout there. So we all think that we're you, and we all try and get into your headspace, and we all try and assume or presume that we know what you're thinking. So here's a couple of questions. Is Damien McKenzie now, in your mind, the number 2, number 10? Is he surpassed Bowden for that role?
Well, see, now the problem from John Hart's era to mine is it's 25% bigger, because the population's over 5 million.
Yes.
So it's so the answer to the question is, I don't really want to rank Damien, but the fact is this is his second start in 4 tests, and it is a reward for how he's played, and it is a massive desire from us to make sure that he feels really comfortable in driving our team around. And we know that we need 3 outstanding 10s at a World Cup, and that's our plan.
Same as Will Jordan. A lot of us have been calling for 15. He's played 14 with Bowden at 15. Do you see that he can cover both positions equally, or do you have a preference for what jersey he wears?
Well, the answer is definitely cover both. Everyone knows that. We know that. But we've also been delighted with the combination that we've been able to establish with Bowden and him, and the fact that we've got a role for him when he's a wing, that he spends a lot of the time in what most people would call a 15 role. So, we fundamentally believe they're interchangeable. But look, he's a 15 and he's a 14. But the fact is that Bodie, we had to take Bodie off last week. So there's a bit of management with him, and it's a great opportunity for Will to have a crack in the 15 jersey, and I don't think he's got anything to prove to us there, because we know how good he can be there.
Bit of a nonsense question to finish with, and I'll leave you alone after that. Do you mind that the team gets leaked? We got told by a talkback caller yesterday who read the team out, gave us the whole team, and it was exactly right. So he's either a soothsayer, crystal ball, or got a good word. It seems that everyone kind of knew in advance.
Yeah, a little bit frustrating, and clearly somewhere in our New Zealand rugby system, someone's talking when they probably shouldn't have. So that was very disappointing.
I bet. To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full. Locked on, I'm the Minister of Common Sense.
Next!
I'm also the All Black coach.
We need to talk.
Oh, okay, I'm not really.
We need to talk.
I'd like to think I'm an All Black selector.
Next!
All right, I'm just a dumb old stupid fan raving into a microphone, doing a sports show, if that's the case. What do you make of this All Black side?
Well, I'm pleased with a number of things about it. I'm pleased to see Damien McKenzie back at first 5. I'm very pleased to see Will Jordan at fullback. I'm very pleased to see Lester Whanganuku on the wing. I'm very pleased to see Dallas McLeod on the bench. And I'm very pleased to see Luke Jacobson on the bench, who still isn't returning my phone calls, by the way. It'd be nice if you got back in touch.
Just
Luke.
One text, Luke, if you could possibly.
Just one. That's all I want.
back.
Just one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've only
you don't
sent
have
you
to
one.
meet him. Don't accept the invite for anything.
37
Okay?
texts maybe in the last
That's
few
it.
days, you know?
Yeah.
Are you in the team? Please tell me you're in the team. Do you still have your boots from the other weekend? Anyway, I think it makes sense. Like, as much as I'd love to see them roll out the best 15 for every single test, because I just think it'll be the most beneficial thing once we get to the knockout phase of the World Cup. At the same time, there are some players who haven't been able to play so far who deserve some game time against good competition. Those being Leicester Whanganuku, I bang his drum so much, but Luke Jacobson as well, I think, needs to at least get a good half an hour on the field. And a similar thing with Tamati Williams, who I thought was brilliant against South Africa and deserved another shot at playing. And Simon Penifino as well, who, as much as we're going to sit here and say Shannon Frizzell's been brilliant, before that test against Argentina, we were, you and I in particular, were calling for his head. And I was saying start Fino instead. He's had a great Super Rugby
that's because
season.
he's been incredibly inconsistent in an All Black jersey, apart from these three games.
Tests,
Next.
Are you happy that Aaron Smith gets a Rolling Stones exponents last chance to dance? This is a summer tour and we're going to fold it. Yeah, that he gets to run on in Dunedin and do that? Ordinarily, I'd say no. I'd say I don't have room for sentiment in sport. I really don't. I remember Sir Alex Ferguson in 1994, United were going for a double, and that had only been so rarely achieved in English football. That's the FA Cup and winning the league, the first division of the Premier League. And he didn't pick him to play against Chelsea in the FA Cup final.
Sorry, he didn't pick who?
Brian Robson.
Oh, Brian Robson.
Didn't pick him to play. And he said he regrets it now because he thought that maybe I should have been a bit sentimental, because at the time it never entered his head to be sentimental. The only thing he thought about was winning. Winning. What is the best thing for the club Manchester United that I managed? But in Aaron Smith's case, I mean, I'm in that kind of twilight zone where I'm kind of thinking, yeah, it's fantastic, but is that what a test match should be about? I mean, if he comes on the field, he's there to do a role. He's not there to wave to the crowd, is he?
Well, it's not as if he's washed up and shouldn't be anywhere near the 23. So there's a place for him to be playing.
But it's luxury, though, isn't it? That's what I said right at the start of the interview with Foz. It's a luxury selection, isn't it? Where he's in a position where he's able to do this.
Yeah. I guess there's more of a parade when he gets to come on the field. Would it be more of a parade if he was subbed off, say, in the 65th minute?
I believe so.
So why don't you do that?
Yeah, well, that's because they don't need to, because we've just won 3 matches in a row.
Next.
Is this the team that will play South Africa at Twickenham in 2 weeks' time?
No, not at all.
Next.
Is this the team that's going to play France in the World Cup opener on Saturday, September the 9th?
No.
Next.
Is this the team that's going to play Uruguay in our last pool match at the World Cup?
Yeah, likely. Possibly. At least it would be this rotated.
Is this an insult to Eddie Jones and the Wallabies to completely change the team and only have 3 of the run-on side that played last week?
Yeah, I think so, actually. I don't think it's so much...
I think you're completely wrong, mate. You've got to get into this.
I don't think
Listen,
it's so...
we can't play the same 15 every week. These guys aren't allowed to play 5 games in a row, are they?
Rewind 14 years to 2009. We played the Wallabies in 4 tests. We won all 4 of them. The third of those, I think by that stage, we'd already locked up the Bledisloe Cup, and we played them in Wellington. We beat them by like 30 points. But I'm pretty damn sure, rolled out what was considered our best team, because it would have been a tougher test match. The thing is... This Wallabies side is nowhere near as good as what they were 14 years ago. They don't give us the same challenge. So we have the luxury of being able to rotate the squad, knowing full well we should probably still beat them by a couple of tries.
Couple more questions.
Next.
What say we dick this team, this Wallabies team? What say this team dicks the Wallabies by 30 points? What does that say?
It says that we've got a very deep squad. And they don't have any quality.
What say we don't win or we really struggle to win? What does that say?
If we struggle to win it, I'm not bothered, because it's not our best team, I don't think. If we lose, that is incredibly counterproductive, because as much as we lose a game, and there's always a demoralising mental side to losing matches, whatever sport you're playing, I'd be concerned that it gives the Wallabies a bit of a sniff. And all of a sudden they go, oh, okay, well, we can beat the All Blacks. It's all a mental thing. I think it's a little bit like when England beat us in 2019. I guess man for man, they weren't a better team than us, and they're...
they certainly bloody looked at it from the place that I was sitting at in the stand, mate.
They, for the years prior, apart from 2016, where I think they went the whole year unbeaten, they hadn't really looked like a top side, at least that was capable of beating an All Blacks side that the years prior was very good. But all that mattered was on the day, they had the motivation. Your ability to beat teams in sports, a lot of it is a mental thing. So if we don't win this test and the Wallabies win it, all of a sudden they're feeling good about themselves, they're strutting around, and maybe that's just enough of a springboard getting into the World Cup for them to perform well.
Silver Ferns, is that a foot trip? South Africa, 1995, for those of us with the longer memories. Now got to beat Jamaica tonight. And then do we want to avoid Australia in that semi-final? So many questions. Leana de Bruin, 100 and more tests for the Silver Ferns, with her thoughts. How did you explain to me and our listeners the last 3, 4, 5 minutes of that match this morning?
Yeah, look, it was definitely intense, and obviously you had an 8th player on the court with that crowd. I think some of those players have never really felt that pressure as such, and I do think, mistakes happen when times get tough and you're running after the clock, and every ball is crucial. So, to me, it was just lack of experience in those pressure situations.
Yeah, and now in a position where, everyone's got the calculators out, everyone's juggling, everyone's going, okay, well, if this happens, this happens, this happens. How do you see it? Being a player that has got so much experience, Leana, what are the players saying to each other now? Do they just look to the next game and go, we got to beat Jamaica tonight?
Yeah, definitely. There's no point dwelling on that one. It's happened and it's all over. But I also believe that they would have taken a lot from that, and everybody would look in the mirror and go, well, what do I need to do to bring my best game in against Jamaica, which is not going to be easy. They've got some world-class players in there, especially their defensive end is on fire. So you got to bring your A game and your role that you've got to play. Knowles is really, really good at pinpointing what your role is as a player in the team, and what she's going to ask from you is you're going to have to do that 110% tonight.
How good are Jamaica at the moment? I'm going back to the Commonwealth Games last year where they just seemed unplayable, and then they beat Australia, obviously, and didn't save their A game for the final. But how good are they right now?
Very good. I think the experience that, especially Janelle Fowler, you've got Romelda Aiken, they've had massive games over in Australia. Their defensive end has just won the SSN competition over there. Their tails will definitely be up, and especially after this morning's game or their last night, they'll look at that and go, if we can stick together, if we don't get angry at each other, because that's unfortunately sometimes the downfall of those Jamaican teams is once things get a little bit tough, they can drop their heads. But I think they would go into that game with a lot of confidence.
Is this result for the Silver Ferns 1995 all over again?
Yeah, yes and no. You've got different calibre of players, and I think everybody's just got so much better. There's in every team just about in that tournament, some players are playing overseas and playing international players week in, week out. They're getting more professional. I think in terms of that, everybody's more on a level, on a par when it comes to these games. And nobody is so afraid to play each other anymore. I remember, freaking out to play against Australia, but when we started ANZ Tams, you play them week in, week out, and it just got easier.
Australia, are they always the yardstick and will always be the yardstick? In that case, how good are they right now as well?
Yeah, we all love beating the Aussies.
Yes.
They're just
everything.
one of those teams. Yeah, at everything. But I think they're just clinical. I think the only thing I would suggest that could be a downfall for them is they play that long shot and super shots, and they also have breaks during the quarter. So now what they've asked for in these games is they've got to sort out their own problems, whereas in their local competition they can actually call time and then ask for help or get gathered together again and sort things out. They're not going to have this in these crucial times, and they're going to have to sort it out themselves. So, but, they bring their A game if the big games come up, and we all know that they're very physical, and that's the thing that people don't like playing against them is they're just so physical.
Well, they hate losing, Leana. That's what I love about them. And look at them, in turn, doesn't matter cricket, rugby, whatever, they just despise losing, and they'll do whatever it takes to win. And a lot of us, find that a bit distasteful at times, but that's what sport is, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think, one of the things I do think us Kiwis are just like, oh, yeah, she'll be all right attitude sometimes.
Yeah.
Which, the Aussies don't have that. Their competition is massive. There's a lot of people that want those bibs. There's a lot of competition. So at the young age, they have to work really, really hard to get to the top, and they're not going to let that hard work slip away. That's why they're so competitive.
Okay. reassure us here, Leana. I just I'm a worrywart. I'm a worrywart from heck, and I've got so much time for this team. I mean, I infamously said that they were a bunch of old fossils and that they wouldn't win last time, and they as soon as they won, they got that tweet and they plastered it over everything, and I had to eat the humble pie. Look, I think Dame Nolene is an amazing coach and everything else. I'm worried that this is a hiccup, a foot trip, and we're not going to be able to recover from it.
I think we will. I definitely think we are going to come out of this better. You had senior players that were sitting on the bench in crucial moments that I didn't quite agree with Nolene. You need that experience towards the end for those crucial moments. Those girls will step up another level. They know as leaders they have to play better. The expectation on them is going to be better, and they will pull it off because this might be the last chance they get to do that. So I definitely think they're going to move on. They're going to move on fast and focus on the next job.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full.
The Tide 5.
Brilliant football last night. Great results. We'll talk about that. The All Blacks 2:35 kickoff. Can the Silver Ferns still win the World Champs? Have you been following the Sean Payton versus Nathaniel Hackett spat that's going on in the NFL? Warriors tomorrow night, and the NPC kicks off tomorrow too. 2:35 kickoff for the All Blacks. Why? Why is this being played in the afternoon? I mean, it's indoors. That's the whole point of the stadium in Dunedin. You don't have to play it afternoon. The reason that everyone is now crying for roofs on stadiums in Auckland is why?
Roofs.
Roofs. Why do we want roofs on stadiums? Because all the sport is at night.
Yeah.
It's in winter. It's freezing bloody cold. You go to Christchurch or Dunedin at 7 o'clock at night. You don't want to go outside if it's a terrible night. Well, same as Wellington. So it used to be a sunny afternoon. That's when we played our test matches. So you didn't need a roof on the stadium. But now we do. But now we've got a roof, so now we're playing. Look, I don't mind. I mean, I love the idea. It just rearranges Saturday. That's all it does.
Yeah. It's a bit strange.
Instead of quality time on Saturday, I'll be sitting in front of the telly getting lagered and
I tell you what, it takes out a nice chunk of your day, doesn't it?
Doesn't it just?
Because you can sleep in and then, by the time you get through the morning...
you've had your brunch, mate. You're looking forward to an All Black test.
Yeah, and then it starts. Then you can kind of get away with watching post-match coverage. There's more sport on after that.
All of a sudden, you just think I might have a couple of jars, and by the 7 o'clock, the football women's World Cup's
and then you're kind of snoozing on the couch. It's been an easy day, no hard work.
Loving it.
No, I like it. There's no game down in Dunedin in the FIFA Women's World Cup. There's a game at Eden Park and a game in Wellington. So
confusing, isn't it?
Yeah. Maybe FIFA don't want.
Can FIFA tell the All Blacks now when they're playing? Can they? That doesn't surprise me at all if that's the case.
That's probably what's happened.
Can the Silver Ferns still win the Netball World Championships? Yes. Leana de Bruin was with us about 40 minutes ago. Thank you very much, Leana. She still says yes.
Yes, because at the last World Cup, we lost to Australia in the group phase, or whatever you want to call it.
We did too.
And then we beat them in the final.
We did too.
Yeah. Australia lost to Jamaica in the group stage of the Commonwealth Games, then won the whole thing.
That's right. I remember, in fact, talking to Dame Nolene, who wasn't a dame at that stage, I don't think, just Nolene, after that loss to Australia. And she said a couple of things that have always stuck with me because I love her brain as a coach. She's one of the most fascinating people to sit down and just talk about sport and how she thinks and how she looks at games and how she prepares, all that kind of stuff. And she said, the last quarter, I remember it clearly, she said the last quarter told me so much more than I'd ever thought I needed to know about Australia. And it was simply that we came back from about a 6 or 7 goal deficit. They had their A team still out there. But she learned enough of that last quarter to go, oh, hang on a second, we can actually get you guys. This is where you're vulnerable. And if we remember, we won it by 1 goal. Yeah, I'm really worried about the Jamaican side because, the side that arrived here with where they were ringing around saying, has anyone actually listened to Bob Marley before? Can you play a game of netball tonight for us? Like, remember that last year?
Yeah.
Right? And they turned up with no players. Well, contrast that with the Commonwealth Games where they had a big tall shooter. I can't remember her name, I'm sorry. And we just couldn't cope. Every time she got the ball, she put it in and we'd lost it in the first quarter. Which Jamaican side are we playing tonight?
I don't know. For what it's worth, their wins haven't been as big as ours so far this tournament. But I was talking to someone involved with Netball New Zealand who was pretty much... we'll talk about the South African game, and then I said, you'd be a bit nervous ahead of the Jamaica game, and she was just raving about the Jamaicans from what she's seen during the tournament. She said, I've never seen them this good. They look as
Leana said that too, didn't she?
tournament ready as ever. All the players play in the Australian competition and the one in the UK. They've been there and lost many times before, so they've kind of got the experience of losing and the motivation for that not to happen again. They've got all their best players. You just don't want to face this team. So it's actually kind of good they're in our group, so we don't actually face them until the final, assuming we get to the final and assuming they do as well. So I'm very nervous about this Jamaican game.
Mike has texted in. He said, it is because of FIFA. This is the 2:35 kickoff for the All Blacks. They didn't want use of the stadium at the same time as a World Cup match is on. So
Fair enough.
Okay, I can understand that. I mean, they are the world authority on everything to do with sport.
Well, hold up. Then they wouldn't have wanted the Farah Palmer Cup to be on at the same time as well,
Good
right?
point. Or the NPC rugby.
Yeah, because aren't those big jewel cards in
they're still
New
relevant,
Zealand sport?
aren't they? You would think so.
Maybe not.
Nathaniel Hackett versus Sean Payton. Now, Sean Payton used to coach the New Orleans Saints, won a Super Bowl, also got suspended for a year because of the head hunting, right? Remember that? Where the bounty hunting to smack guys in the head and knock them out. And he was actually caught on camera on tape saying that, so we got banned for it. Now he's reappeared as the Denver Broncos coach, and the previous Denver Broncos coach was a guy called Nathaniel Hackett, who was the offensive coordinator at Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers. Gets a head coaching job. They had their worst. He got Russell Wilson. They had their worst ever season. Ever.
Appalling.
He got sacked halfway through. And anyway, Sean Payton's come out and called him the worst coach ever in the NFL and just had a real crack at him. Hackett is now with the Jets, back with Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers has turned around and given Sean Payton, same kind of verbal slap across whatever media platform he can possibly put himself across. What the hell is this all about? Come on, gentlemen. Surely if you've got something to say to each other, you'd say it to the guy, wouldn't you?
Yeah, because I think Sean Payton's comments were from a week ago when he was asked in an interview and he just let rip saying it was, everyone's hands are dirty. It was such an appalling job from everyone involved.
Saying. Exactly right.
Nathaniel Hackett was rubbish. And to the credit of... So this is the thing that annoys me. And I guess if you're a coach, you have a right to criticise other coaches who are bad. I always hate it because I've never been in that position and I don't have the intelligence that other coaches have in their respective sports and whatnot. But this guy, Nathaniel Hackett, he didn't just turn up out of nowhere. He'd been involved in football for a very long time, assistant coach at various different NFL teams, did a great job at Green Bay as their offensive coordinator. He was signed as the Broncos coach because they thought they were going to get Aaron Rodgers in a trade, and they didn't. And yeah, it was an awful season, and his clock management, I remember, was very bad, and they threw away a game because of that. And it was certainly a year to forget, and he got fired, and he's been the butt of many jokes. But at the same time, he's not an idiot. No. He's a good enough football mind to be coaching in the NFL. And he made a good point that, something about you kind of broke, there's just certain things you don't say. You don't really go the distance with some comments or criticisms to other coaches in the NFL.
Yeah, that's what he's saying. He's saying there's a code. I just thought
Sean Payton over. I mean, you don't need to say and make these comments and really criticise one guy for the job he did. Just, it's unnecessary, and you're kind of kicking a man while he's down. You don't need to do it.
Football last night was fantastic. You watched South Africa play.
I loved it.
Yeah.
I was glued to it. I was actually glued to the game.
Now, I started the program by saying, people, and you've got to be honest about this, I said, look, the quality of some of the football isn't good. And I think the goalkeepers at times I look at and I go, my God, you're the most unathletic athletes I see in playing any professional sport. But hey, it's a women's World Cup, and if you don't like it, you don't watch it, and you don't want to get into it, that's perfectly okay. I think that if you just free your mind a little and go, I'm watching 2 international women's teams play here. I'm not watching Messi versus Ronaldo, okay? I'm not watching that. If I'm watching women's basketball, I'm not watching Michael Jordan play. So you got to understand that. Accept it if you like it. That was brilliant last night. Both games that I saw, I thought was superb. I didn't watch France versus Panama, but the Jamaican-Brazilian game was as tense as any sport I've seen in a long time. That was like, to me, it was like watching New Zealand versus England at the Basin. It went down to the last kick of about 100 minutes, and all they did was stack and pack the defence. That's all they could do, just keep them out. But we've all followed our football teams when that's the case, when you're clinging on for 1-0 for dear life, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's the most horrible...
It's drama.
The last 5-6 minutes is the most horrible thing.
Oh, you're pleading for the referee, aren't you?
You're pacing.
You know what I do? I turn the TV off on and I turn it off, I turn it on, I turn it off, I walk out of the room, I walk out of the house, I come back.
What I used to do, I always had this really stupid... when back when I was living at home when Mum Dad had my Sky, because I can't afford that now. And back when the Premier League was on Sky Sport, I would record the games and watch them later on. But I just had this just feeling that if I just look at the score in the morning and I don't watch a replay and I don't record it, then they're going to lose. I've got to watch the replay. And even if what goes on during me watching the replay, I just always thought this would impact the result of the match. And I'd be pacing up and down the lounge and cold sweating. I'd be punching the sky and punching couches, and the dog would be jumping on me. And then I'd if we lost, I'd just turn the TV off and I'd go for a run usually, or I'd do something to let out the anger. It's the most horrible thing.
What you've just done is define normal for me. That's what you've done. Warriors tomorrow night. We've got Justin Morgan in about 40 minutes from now. Can't wait to talk to Justin. It's been a few weeks since we caught up with the Warriors assistant coach, or one of the assistant coaches. This is a massive game against the Titans, but the round kicks off tonight. Costa will join us at 3:30. Costa's Corner, as he always does. The round kicks off tonight with another blockbuster, Roosters versus Sea Eagles. And I keep saying every week, last chance to dance for the Roosters, winner take all game. If Manly win, that's it for the Roosters. They are definitely out. But if they win, they give themselves a little bit of a lifeline. Before we talk to Justin, how do you call the Titans Warriors tomorrow? Titans coming off a good win against the Cowboys last week, mate.
I think the Warriors will lose.
What?
Yeah.
No.
I think
On what basis?
The Titans are a frisky side. As you say, they beat the whatchamacallits last week, the Cowboys. They have good performances in them from time to time. The Titans have got really good players, by the way, in key positions, I think. And the Warriors are coming off the bye. They're on the road. I don't know. I just have a feeling the Titans will win. It's more wishful thinking more than anything. Because I'm a nasty person, regardless of whether my Broncos are doing well or not, I love nothing more than the Warriors not playing well. Because it just means it just means that I'm happy with my team performing well, and every other league fan in New Zealand is miserable because the Warriors are losing.
See, all I got out of last year's NRL was after the Warriors were just crap after 4 games or something like that. The only thing that caused me joy was the Broncos slide. That was the only thing. Every week I looked at that. I watched the games hoping that you'd lose another one. God, what's wrong with us? I mean, that's not abnormal, isn't it? Isn't that? It's
totally normal.
No, I don't.
Devlin. Words matter.
Warriors away, Titans coming off the bye, 5 games to go. How do you look at this? Do you isolate, separate this and go, this is just this game? Or are they looking long-term at the 5 matches? On the Gold Coast, Justin Morgan, Warriors assistant coach. Tricky fixture tomorrow. How would you describe it?
Yeah, tricky, definitely. I think a couple of things that have stood out for me over the past month. Statistically for them, they've been very good. They're in the top 3 or 4 in terms of completion rates. They're top 3 or 4 in terms of converting field position into points. Their back 5 meters are, again, top 5 in the NRL for the past month. So, while their position on the ladder might, dictate how they've been going for the entire season, obviously, but their last month of footy's been pretty good. They're fast. They're a fast-moving football team. They move the ball well, and their outside backs are speedy. So it's definitely it's going to be a tricky contest for us. We saw that last week when they played the Cowboys, who were on a 6-game winning streak, right. and they got rolled by them.
I think the goal line defence has been outstanding. Could I add to that instead that there's been a bit too much of it, and that repeats sets of 6? It's not a criticism, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, you're right. It is. When you've got to do a heap of it, there's got to be a reason. You're either giving the ball away or you're not finishing your sets as well as you would like. So, when we've had to put ourselves under pressure, we've really stood up. We've shown, some really good resilience, but we need to do less of that, especially when we get to this time of the season. You're going to tend to find that, as you get closer to September, that, conditions are going to be a lot better, certainly in Australia, for playing footy, the afternoon footy, the sun's out, dry grounds, the ball's going to move a little bit easier than what it does in the middle of June and July. So we don't want to be defending our goal line too much. So, yeah, that's a fair observation, something that we've certainly spoken about.
Justin Morgan is with us. You talk about anxiety and pressure. At the very start of the season, I'm putting words in your mouth. It's about establishing credibility. It's about getting on a winning run. It's about putting a succession of results together. Right now, all of that has changed, though, because when you're sitting there in the top 4 in the table, you've got 5 to go, and these 5 teams are all outside the 8. How does that expectation change for you, Justin, and for your players? Does it mean, hey, look, we're not here just to make up numbers anymore?
Yeah, I think at the start of the year, the key component for the coaches to the players was about getting them to believe that we could do all those things that you mentioned. I think, deep down we felt as though we had a structure and a plan. and a style of play that we could, display that and get some credibility back and be competitive, every single week. And I think we've done that. But at the same time, if you fast forward 5 weeks' time and we don't win five games, or we don't, finish as high as we would like, and we fizzle the season out, we haven't really achieved what we want to achieve. What we've done is we've driven ourselves to a really good position. That's what we've done. It's like, if you use a golf analogy, we've hit it off the tee nicely. We're in the middle of the fairway. No point in chunking the next one into the sand trap and taking 5 to get out. So it's really important that we convert what we've done in the past, the 20 weeks of the season. And obviously that's easier said than done, but
sure.
That's what our focus has been. Our focus has been making sure we improve and we take advantage of the position that we're in. Would we rather be where we are than where some other teams are in the competition? Of course we would. So we need to take advantage of that. That's important.
When I talk about expectations changing, maybe making the 8 to start with, but then maybe making a home semi-final, now there's a chance of top 4. Do you talk about this amongst yourselves?
Not too often, but it's hard not to look at it, and you might have a conversation with another staff member or the coaches, but it's not something that we regularly talk about. We don't talk about it in the team or group environment. But look, we're all human. We're all looking at the different scenarios. We win this one, they lose this one. We win that one, they lose that one. What we can't do is we can't take our eye off what the most important part is and what's been working for us, and that's been training hard and making sure that we've got that belief in the group and in our game plan and so forth. So I think what it's done is it's made us excited.
Yeah.
We often talk about, we all want to play semi-finals, Well, we've got a chance now.
Yep.
Let's get excited about that. Let's embrace that extra bit of stress and the extra bit of pressure that's on us now. Let's embrace that. And I think the team's starting to do that. I think they're starting to embrace when teams are trying to take us on a little bit, and know that when they play against the Warriors, it's going to be, a bit more of a difficult game than it maybe has been in the past few seasons. So, we're embracing that, that extra pressure, and I think a lot of our senior players should take credit for that because they're really leading the charge.
Is it a group of 5 games, or is it really game by game? I can't see how you can look at it in this competition other than this team this week, and then let's look at next team next week. And I know that everyone wants a different answer than that, but that's the answer that I would expect from you.
Yeah, and that's the obvious one, and realistically, that's the one that the coaches look at. While we might have one eye on who we play next week, but as soon as you take some kind of pressure off, or some kind of focus off what you need to do this week, that's when a team can come up and they can beat you. And again, look. While we're playing a lot of teams that are lower on the ladder, they've got nothing to lose. They'll go out. There's guys that are still trying to win contracts, and coaches keep jobs and all those types of things. So, it's a really, really tough competition. So I know as coaches, we were only talking about this the other day socially, saying, what's your system? How quickly do you watch opposition teams? And we try not to watch opposition teams that we're playing in a week's time, too early in the week, because again, our focus will be off the team that we're playing this week, and that we might not display that or say that to the players, but it might subconsciously be in some of the things that we talk about. So we make sure we just concentrate on week to week, and then when we get to game day tomorrow, the coaches will start to look at the Tigers for next week. But we haven't started to look at the Tigers because it's important that we stay focused and the players realise that as well.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full. Football Women's World Cup. Well, it's just getting better and better, and now we're into the knockout stages, starting on Saturday. A couple of games still tonight. Simon Hill was calling Jamaica versus Brazil last night. He reckons it's one of the best defensive performances he's seen any football side put out. Let me read a phrase to you, a sentence. South Africa and Jamaica have knocked Italy and Brazil out of the Football World Cup. You will never, in our lifetimes, my man, hear that at a Men's World Cup. How good?
Yeah, that's a fair statement, and you're probably right. But I think it's indicative of the rising standards of women's football around the world. That the traditional heavyweight nations, if we want to put it that way, are not having things all their own way. And I'm based down in Melbourne for the group stage and the round of 16, and we've seen two heavyweight nations fall by the wayside in terms of Canada and now Brazil, and at the end of two great careers, Christine Sinclair and Marta, and it's almost as though they're passing the baton to the next generation. You're thinking of the likes of Mary Fowler, who played against Christine Sinclair, and Khadija Shaw, Bunny Shaw, who played against Marta last night. So we're seeing the emergence not only of new teams at the top table of world football in the women's game, but also emerging stars as well, which is terrific and obviously bodes well for the future health of the sport.
Whoever came up with the idea of playing these matches simultaneously, and I know it was because of the Austro-German peace pact all the way back in 82.
Yeah.
You remember that. But it's just gripping entertainment is what it is. That's what we want from sport, isn't it? You called a 0-0 draw last night, which wasn't a great game, but it had so much tension attached to it. And, previous to that, we watched South Africa, who had heard the lead twice against Italy and then come back and score in injury time. The night before we saw a width of a post save the United States against Portugal. I'm just loving the entertainment side of it is what I am.
Yeah, well, I guess, it's all about the context. The sport, like everything else in the media, is about the story. And the story last night was of Brazil going out of the World Cup, which at the group stage is unheard of almost, certainly in the women's game. So that's, one of the great narratives of sports. And sometimes I get a little bit frustrated. I'm sure it's the same on your side of the Tasman that, certain people look at a 0-0 draw and go, oh, well, it's boring. And yet the same people will watch 5 days of a cricket test match and go, well, that was a great draw. So it's about selling the understanding of the context of the game. And of course, there are other things to appreciate aside of goals. And one of the things I really loved about last night was just how brilliant the Jamaicans defended. And that's an art in itself. Scoring goals is an art, of course, but keeping them out at the other end is equally difficult. And as a unit, Jamaica was so well organised last night. They virtually had to defend for the entire 90 minutes. But they did it so brilliantly.
That's our podcast for today. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to listen to the entire show, 1 till 4, Monday to Friday, download the Platform app, and via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to whatever shows over however many weeks at your leisure, at your listening pleasure. Platform Plus. First thing to do, though, is download the Platform app.
Devlin.
Unbelievable. Incredible.
The Platform.